start first, and then you're going
Yep.
to tell me to record the audio, right?
So watch
Are
the
we
timer.
recording?
We're
Ready?
ready and go. Gonna try this again. And oh well, missed it. But 5 seconds of silence.
Hello there. I'm Gail Carriger,
And I'm Piper J. Drake,
and you are listening to 20-Minute Delay
a podcast about travel.
because travel never goes how you expect.
Indeed not, or you don't travel at all. Like that happens too.
That happens too.
Oh my goodness. And today we will be talking about our most memorable flight. We're
This is very exciting.
yes, we're going back in the day. This is memories here. Memories.
Yes, yes. Yeah, our most memorable flights. But
But
first,
first,
where have you been recently, Piper?
I mean, I've been
Nowhere.
here in Seattle. I've been in my apartment. I have not even been outside my apartment because safety is a
Yep.
thing. But I would say one of the things that's interesting about it, and this is going to be kind of fun, is we're moving.
Oh, I
Yes,
didn't know that.
totally decided to spring that on you. Yes, but we're not moving
Okay.
far. We're moving to a different apartment in the same apartment complex.
Oh, did you guys get a bigger one?
We did. We're getting a 2 bedroom place as opposed to a one
Nice.
bedroom urban layout. So we're gonna have
Nice.
doors that shut. And
Ooh,
here's the important part.
swanky.
There's gonna be 2 bathrooms. 2 bathrooms.
Oh, that is truly clutch. That is luxury there, woman.
It's
That
beautiful.
is, yeah.
It's
Oh,
luxury. Oh my gosh.
there's
So
nothing that will save a relationship more than two bathrooms, I have to say.
exactly. And there's more windows in this particular apartment. I can't wait for you to come visit because that
Oh,
means
I'm
we will have a
excited.
guest room and an air mattress for you. It's gonna be
But
fantastic.
I have stayed with Piper before, everybody, so I know exactly what her original apartment looked like, and I know her apartment complex, which is really nice. Your apartment, like, it has like a cool spare like assembly area where you can
Hmm.
go and write, and then it's very dog friendly, so it has like a little dog zone at the bottom, a little dog
Yes.
and stuff. Yeah, so
Although I have to
I'm
say that
excited you don't have to leave the actual apartment
exactly, we're moving up a couple of floors, so our view will change just a touch, but it'll still be in a southeastern direction, which is always kind of fun because the irony
building.
of
Yeah.
that is my partner Matthew hates mornings. He's not a morning person, whereas I get up and I'm usually working East Coast hours for day job, so I am
So you're
up
up early.
and I
Yeah.
am up and I am online and I am already moving with meetings at about 6 a.m. Pacific time. So during the winter, that's kind of tough because I'm in the dark, right? Like I'm just
Yeah.
bumping into walls. Um,
Yeah.
but also we have an eastern exposure, so when the sun comes up in the summer, Matthew's just like, no. So this is just gonna be more windows for him to be like, I need to seek darkness.
No.
I might have to get him one of those pop-up beds, like those pop-up tents that sits on your bed, like that
Yeah.
kids. My nephews have them. They're like a pop-up tent, so they sleep and they think they're camping on their own bed. I might have to get that for him just so that he can kind of be in darkness for like an hour longer
Yeah.
during the day because there's going to be a lot of windows in this new place. So that's going to change. That's going to be fun.
Yeah. That'll be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been getting out pretty regularly. We don't live in a city. We live in a suburban area. So it's a little bit easier for us. Um, so we're kind of triaging times when the least amount of other people are out, and then we're playing like crafty games of neighborhood frogger. We just got a mask ordinance in place, so now we have little pocket masks that we can whip out and put on every time we need a mask.
Mm-hmm.
And we have like various different directions we can choose to go, and it is very much like being a child again, where you're excited if you have a thing to do, and they'll be like I have a letter to mail, so we have to go to the post box. Woohoo!
To the
Like
post box.
yay, a quest for our daily walk. But it's actually the weather's actually getting quite a bit nicer as well. So, and I have a remote office that's about 3 miles away from my house, so I can bike to and from it. So I might start biking again now that the weather is getting better. Um,
As
so
long
that's
as
but
you
that's been
disinfect everything you touch on the way there and on the way back.
yeah. I mean, it's actually my office is super convenient for this kind of situation because
Yeah.
it's a it's kind of a outside door office. So my old office, it used to have a main door that you had to open and then go in, and then there would be my office door. This one is less good for delivery for packages and stuff because it's basically kind of like a walk through
Like
open
a hallway.
transom hallway thing,
Yeah.
that does not lock. But it basically just means it's my door. So, and I, being me, always wear gloves anyway. So, since this has been enacted, I've just been rotating quite happily through my vast collection of leather gloves. It's like, ooh, what color of leather gloves do I wear today?
What
And
gloves
like,
am I gonna wear?
and then we don't know exactly how long the virus lasts on gloves. So I'm just like, well, I have 24 pairs of leather gloves, so I'll just rotate through them. I figure 24 days is
That's
long
like
enough,
24 days
right?
is 3 weeks. I mean,
Yeah. Who knew being a rabid collector of vintage leather gloves would come in so handy? I
I
know
think
it's
that's
ridiculous.
fantastic. It's great.
But like you
24.
have
I
to,
was thinking
yeah,
like
no,
7. No,
but you
24.
have to imagine me like in let's be honest, most of the time, barely outdoor clothing. So jeans and a sweatshirt and a jacket of some kind, and then
Hmm.
really beautiful bright blue vintage leather gloves or something.
And occasionally with some very, very like fetching bow or something like that on the back of it. Of course.
Exactly. Yeah, a little bow or some studs or diamante or something. It's very funny. But they're getting a lot of use, I have to say.
That's fantastic. I love it. Oh.
All right. So shall we talk about our main topic? Our main
Indeed.
topic today is most memorable flight. Why don't you start, Piper? What
I'm
is your
starting.
most memorable flight? I want to hear
Okay.
about it. I'm so excited.
There's a lot of flying in my life. A lot of flying. So I had to think about what was the most positive experience that pops to mind every time somebody asks. And I have to admit, it was the first time that I no, not the first time. It was a time that I went to Japan, Tokyo. I was going by myself, and we managed to use my frequent flyer miles to boost me to business class. And darling,
Ooh.
talk about luxury. This was when I lived on the East Coast, so the flight to Japan was going to be rather long, but it also was a direct flight. I think I was flying out of JFK. I can't remember exactly where I was flying out of. It could have been DC. But it was going to be a direct flight to Japan. I think it was All Nippon Airlines or something, but it was regardless, it was business class. They had these lovely large cubicle areas, and so the area was lovely. I was super blown away by the cute little kits of personal items and the blankets that they had. And I remember I was a little bit embarrassed, right? Because I was at that time traveling wearing combat boots all the time. Because combat boots, I could stomp around whatever city I was in. Or if I was wearing a suit, you just saw the toes. And that always looks very, very businesslike. So I just wore combat boots and didn't have dress shoes, right? So the the stewardess came and was like, um, for takeoff, would you like to take off your shoes? And we have these cute little slippers for you. And she's like, and she sees my combat boots. She goes, let me get a bag for you. I'm like taking off my big combat boots. And she like puts them in a bag, completely like sophisticated and elegant. And she's just like, no worries. And then she wanders away. And I didn't see my boots for the rest of the flight. And she's like, you can change in the bathroom. It's big enough that you can change in the bathroom. Here's some pajamas. And it was kind of funny because the overall experience was glorious. Like, not only were they super polite and we took off and the seating was comfortable and everything, but after the first meal, which was also really fun because you ordered from a menu and it was a multi-course meal and the food was very, very good, especially up to my that time of my experience. So I was all super happy about the food. But they invited me to take a stretch walk so they could make my bed, which really meant that they pushed the button to make the seat go down, and then they would
Yes.
like put like a feather comforter. They had a comforter, and then they had like a
Wow.
little bundle of lavender that they placed on the airplane pillow for me. And then,
Wow.
when I wandered back and they're like, okay. And they're like, you should wear compression socks. So they give me this, they have like this little basket that would normally have snacks in it, but it's filled with really cute treat items. So they had these, all of these little items that you could try, like compression socks, and also these like stick it pads of biofreeze, basically, or like it was some kind of liniment like Flexol or Biofreeze or whatever, and you could actually
Oh, from sore muscles or
peel,
whatever.
yeah, and you could actually peel the backing off of it and stick it against whatever body part might need it to help you sleep. And I was like, oh, this is kind
Cool.
of cool. I've never had this much accoutrement on a flight. So
Yeah,
yeah, that was my
that's
favorite
great.
flight. It was on time as well, which helps. It
That's
was
a
delightfully
really
on
good
time.
idea for a thing to bring on a flight is those pads for icy or hot or whatever. If you're, especially if you're going into a flight with a back injury or knowing that you might get cramps, for example, something
Yep,
along those lines. I might gadget pick that sometime. We'll have to test it out first.
give it a go.
Once we're released back into the world.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so the way Piper and I do this is we have like a spreadsheet that we work off of for topics, and the way the topic is written on the spreadsheet is most memorable flight. So rather than most favorite flight, so
So
I
you're
took it
thinking
as most
memorable. Oh boy.
memorable. Yeah. So
But
the
no, I
flight
want to hear.
it is a great flight story though, but it is from the before time. So I'm gonna do the way back machine and take you to right around 1996, maybe 1997. So this is before a lot of things. Things were different when you flew in those days. And I was flying to Italy for my very first excavation. And so this was a so I was coming from California,
Mhm.
so we took a flight to JFK, and then all of the students and excavators and field supervisors and everybody were all meeting at JFK, and then we were all on the same flight from JFK into Geneva, and
Okay.
then we were gonna switch planes to a little puddle jumper that would take us over the Alps and in to Florence. Now everything went wrong, but that's not where the story of the memorable thing is. I don't remember anything about the first two legs of that trip, but I remember that puddle jumper. So one of the things is I genuinely love flying. So,
Mhm.
and I like the sensation of flying. So as far as I'm
The roller
concerned, the
coaster up and
smaller the
down.
plane, yeah, the smaller the plane, the better. I love tiny planes. I love individual planes. I love prop planes. So this was a prop plane, and it seated about 30 people. This was all operated by KLM. So like it was one of the better um, flight companies at the time.
Mhm.
But it was a prop plane, and so I could see, some of these kids had never flown, college students, but they'd never flown international before, let alone on such a tiny plane. But I was like, oh yay, tiny plane, love the tiny plane. But it was also more people than normal because there were a bunch of excavating students on it, and we all had weird baggage with us. So were allowed to bring our own bag, but then we had to take a bag that was something to do with the excavation.
Yeah.
So, like, I had a box that was nothing but plastic baggies for samples, for specimen samples. They
All
weighed
right.
so much. It was crazy. It weighed so much, but apparently you couldn't get the right plastic bags in Italy, so we had to take
So you
them.
had to bring them with you.
Um,
All right.
yeah. And so we were all on the plane looking out on the tarmac. It was a plane that you had to walk out to and then climb up into.
Mhm.
And I am watching them load our baggage onto one side of the plane and then take it off the other side of the plane. At which juncture, two of us, noticing that this has happened, two of us ballsy, brash American students stand up, walk off the plane, go down onto the tarmac, and begin to start to argue with the local Swiss baggage handlers loudly and in English.
Oh dear.
Um, and they're of course speaking French, and then the pilots come and get involved, and they're speaking Italian, and we're all yelling at each other about the bags that aren't being put on the plane. So that was hilarious. And finally, we were just told flat out that like some of the bags were just not going on the plane because there was too much weight because there were too many people because they had
There's
not
no way
calculated it
that we're
being
gonna
a
take
yeah.
off properly.
Yeah. And we were like, okay. So I started my first excavation with no clothing for a week, which was an interesting experience that taught me a lot about how to pack a carry-on and
I was gonna
checking
say
your
that whole
bag. And
spare foundational garments in your backpack or
yep,
carry-on.
yes,
That's
yes,
that's
that
a thing.
comes from this experience, and it's because what I had packed at the very last minute was a bikini, and that bikini became a lifesaver when I landed at the other end because it was my only bra underwear rotation item for the
And
first
it's kind of
week.
important to
Anyway,
rotate that stuff.
yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
especially when you're excavating in the middle of summer in the hills in Italy.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, that's not the flight story. The flight story actually occurs after this, which is so all of that. We are finally in this propeller plane. We're taking off. It's actually a great flight. It's not bumpy. The Alps are just gorgeous. We're having a raucous, great time. But what it turns out is this flight is us, the excavation kids, and one huge Italian family. And they are every stereotype you have ever seen Hollywood put on the screen about Italians. And it is delightful. The
Yay.
one of the like they are just up, like nobody is obeying the seatbelt rule. Like everybody is up and down. Whole bottles of wine immediately come out of the overhead bin, and then they just start passing it to all of us. And we're all like, great, hello
Hooray.
Europe.
Yes, hello Europe.
And this was the kicker. What should come out of the overhead bin about halfway there? And this is not a long flight, mind you. This is maybe a 2-hour flight, right?
That's
But
still snackage.
is the Italian grandmother who is wearing the printed dress and an apron on a flight goes into the overhead compartment and pulls out an enormous bowl, like a plastic picnic bowl, colorful with flowers all over it, of pasta.
No,
made pasta. And
it's a bowl.
The bowl just gets passed around the flight, and everybody on that flight is eating pasta.
Was it like was it covered with foil, or did it have like a snap off lid?
It had like one of those shower cap hat coverings that they have for cakes and things in Europe, but it was like over the bowl was wearing a shower hat, basically.
Reinforced kind of cover. If this bowl had flipped, there would have been
but there'd been pasta everywhere. But there was no pasta left by the end of that flight.
Fantastic. I'm just sitting here like, what?
It was like literally, I was like, you could not have felt this. I swear every word I am saying is true, and somewhere out in the universe are 30 former or current archaeology students who can vouch for this.
You know what? I'm like picturing the old, is it Ziploc or is it like, there was a cling wrap of some sort. There was like a plastic wrap or a cling wrap where they would like kind of show you a commercial of it around and over the bowl and like flip things over so you can see stuff splashing around. And I'm like,
yes,
was it that?
Yes,
that
would have been exactly that. Yeah. So it was really a delightful experience, and one I will never forget. And yeah, so that's my favorite. That's my favorite flight.
All right. So
experience.
I gotta share a runner up because I was thinking about the puddle jumper thing.
Please.
So this turned out for the best, and thankfully it's a funny story. But I was on a domestic flight. It was a tiny little puddle jumper, in which you had to like walk out onto the tarmac and climb the little ladder to get onto the plane situation. And I felt like a giant. Like I literally, to get down the aisle, had to scrunch up my shoulders and bow my head to walk along. And they actually rearranged us a little bit to even out this weight distribution on the plane. Put the heavier people in the back kind of situation. It was that kind of tiny plane. Also, you would be lucky if, a fanny pack could fit in the overhead bin in this plane. It was that small.
The Greyhound bus overheads, I call them, when there's like, I could put my jacket up there and a scarf, maybe.
And I think I had come through one of the major airports, like I think it might have been Chicago, and I was headed to Kalamazoo, Michigan. Kalamazoo,
Woo!
Friends. Never been there before. Headed to Kalamazoo for a day job. And so we're on the flight, and it was great takeoff. Felt the whole whoop and like started giggling a little bit. One or two people on the plane, maybe not so delighted. I usually do get motion sick, so I have a tendency to go very, very calm. It's not that I'm not enjoying the flight. It's just that I know I get motion sick. So I try to stay super calm and try to regulate my breathing to make sure that I don't end up nauseous. And so I was just kind of like breathing, and we're halfway through the flight. The flight's not going to be that long. I think the flight might not even have been an hour long. And about halfway through the flight, all of a sudden, everything goes whoop into the side and around. We're not talking about turbulence that like flips you around, friends. We're not talking about, just a little dip and then a rise. Like sometimes when you're coming in for a landing, but then the pilot changes his mind and goes up for another circle. No, no, no. This was down and around and flip you to the side and then come back. And we're not talking about a big broad circle either. The pilot gets on and goes, sorry about that, folks, but we had a private plane that apparently wasn't paying attention and we had to do some evasive maneuvers.
Oh,
This was
wow.
a commercial domestic flight and the pilot had to engage in evasive maneuvers.
Well, thank you, pilot, man. Wow,
That
that's
could have been bad.
crazy.
And he was just like, well,
Yeah.
hooray. And he's like, the good news is we'll be landing in 20 minutes. Bye. So that's a runner up for memorable.
Yeah,
And I'm
that's pretty
happy about it
memorable.
because we were all fine. All the
Yeah,
luggage was fine. So it
yeah.
could have been something else. So,
Someday, I'm writing this down right now for us to revisit at some point. But someday we should talk about what's the word I'm looking for? Seatmate horror stories, like when you're next to
oh,
someone on a flight and you're like, please, no,
no,
or on
no,
a bus
no.
or
All right.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Feet stories. That's going to turn into feet
that'll be
stories.
yeah, that'll be a good Halloween episode.
Yeah, maybe. All right. So, shall we go on to gadgets? I think we should go on to
Yes,
gadgets.
let's go on to gadgets. Bum-ba-dum-ba-bum.
All right. What's your gadget? I would love to hear.
Okay, so considering my obsession with food and the fact that my memorable fight also involves food, I was searching for some sort of gadget pick that was a food gadget pick. And you know what? I'm gonna throw this one out to the listeners because I am on always on the hunt for a really delicious protein bar. And I just am really struggling with this. So I found one for a while. There were these little like round protein bars that were
Mm-hmm.
perfect for me. And they don't make them anymore. So what I look for in a protein bar is relatively few ingredients, relative over like 10 for protein and not too much sugar. And that's really where the hard part is. I
Mm-hmm.
tend to lean in favor of a chewy protein bar rather than a crispy one.
Mm-hmm.
Those crispy ones that you found, Piper, are pretty good, but I haven't been able to find any recently, so I don't know if they've also been discontinued. But my
Mm.
preference is for chewy, just because the crispy ones I find just totally dry out my mouth. So yeah, so I would love some recommendations on everybody's favorite travel protein bars for those times when, for example, I'm traveling back and I haven't been able to hard boil any eggs for myself or anything. Because normally I'll just eat a hard boiled
Yeah,
egg.
we just do the eggs. I don't
Yeah.
know. I used to do Quest bars, but I've kind of fallen out of Quest bars. I don't know if they're still decent, but they were very chewy, and I almost would end up full halfway through, and then I never got to the other half before it got super
That's
hard.
always my problem. Is they are always way too much.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for ones that naturally come in two parts or are just a smaller sized protein bar. And I understand that in order to be able to put 12 grams of protein on the bar, they have to be a bigger bar. But yeah, any recommendations that people have that fill this quotient, I would love people's not just the bar itself, but also like a flavor that you really like. I would love
Hmm.
because like I've tried some Luna bars and I tried some Cliff bars and I tried some of this and I tried some of that and like I guess I keep picking wrong or what have you. So yeah, throw me some recommendations. I'd really appreciate it. As you may have guessed, I pretty much eat everything. So except for lavender because lavender is not a food. But I don't know that anybody's made a lavender flavored protein bar. So I
One
think
would
I'm
hope
pretty good.
not. I
But
don't think that I'd be
yeah,
here for that. Yeah.
yeah. But like coconut, peanut, chocolate, whatever it is that you really love, that if you love a protein bar, please tell me about it.
All right. So my gadget is actually from my memorable flight to Japan because remember I had mentioned that when we were getting ready for bed, they brought out this little basket of little items that you could pick and choose from. And one of the things they said is, would you like a personal humidifier device? And I was like, because hours and hours on a plane, particularly anything that goes from continent to continent, is going to dry me out. Like my sinuses dry out, everything, especially when I fall asleep. So I was like, what is this personal humidifier device and how is it fresh for me? And I said, yes, I would love to try it. And it turned out to be, and for those of you in the video can probably see, I have a pack of them here. This might look familiar because these are some types of the masks that you see people wearing nowadays for the current pandemic. And it really
Ah,
was. Now, these particularly are great because there's a little carbon filter layer in these. Um,
yes.
but they're very, very super flexible. They have the little elastic for the ear loops. There's a little metal thing in here to bend over the bridge of your nose. And literally, you would put it on, and they considered it a personal humidifier device. And this was back in 2007, 2008, when it was
Wow.
first introduced to me that you could wear it and it would really keep the humidity in for you. And I found that I gave it a try, right? I gave it a try. I put it on at while I was sleeping on the plane. And when I woke up, I was like, oh, I'm not dried out at all. I'm actually doing great. And what was ironic is I got off the plane because they're like, yes, yes, that's disposable, so you don't have to worry about anybody using it again. I got off the plane and I met up with one of my friends who took a different flight, and he was a hot mess. His eyes were watering, his sinuses were all jacked up, and they were super
Oh.
dry, but also super, super swollen at the same time from the flight. He was not feeling well, and he was just terrible. And I came out looking like all like, hi, how are you? And I have to say that was when I started wearing masks on long flights, partially because it does reduce, the chance of viruses and stuff like that, than anything airborne. And that was way years before the pandemic, but also because of the humidifier factor, and also because I suffer
Mm,
allergies, and it kind of helps with cutting down pollen when I get
yeah.
to some places. So that was the gadget that I learned on that most memorable flight. And so
Huh.
ever since then, I've always had a supply of these masks to travel with, and I always have them in my backpack. So when they started the travel recommendations, I had them already. And people were like, oh, Piper, you don't need them. They're saying, because initially some of the information that they had said you didn't need them. And I was like, oh, yeah, I understand that I don't need them for specifically this concern, but I also use them for humidity purposes, and I also use them for
Yeah.
allergies. So,
And
yeah.
for those who are not watching the live feed or want help with visualizing the type of mask that Piper is talking about are the perfectly rectangular ones that are usually like a pale teal blue color
Or
with a
white.
white side and pleats
Hmm.
in it. And they are the type of mask that you see doctors on soap operas wear.
Yes.
So just imagine that mask, and that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, they're very, very light. They're intended to be disposable, one use
Yeah.
disposable. And mine just happened to have like kind of a little carbon layer in it to help, again, with more about pollen than about.
They're my partner's favorite of the multiples that we have been experimenting with during this
Hmm.
time right now. They really like the those ones the best because they are so light, and they're not as claustrophobic and stuff like that. They're not as effective, but
Not
um,
for the current considerations. No, you would
for the
probably
current
want to kind of
considerations.
double layer
But
them. I do know that
yeah,
we have a couple of friends, at least one in the healthcare um
yeah, they're not going to
situation.
work for that.
Yeah, they won't work for that. And I think she layers the ones that are
She does.
appropriate for that
Yeah,
with fabric to be able to kind of lengthen the amount of time that she can use those
yeah,
safely. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, so that's my gadget. For other times,
I love it. That's a great gadget. What a very cool recommendation. I
right?
I unfortunately don't suffer from super dehydration when I fly. So, although who knows going forward, I seem to have developed allergies later on in life. So
Oh
maybe,
no.
yes, that's been fun.
Uh,
Anyway,
well,
life,
also
it,
nature's been doing its thing. I don't know if anybody ever watched
nature's been
anime.
sure doing its thing.
It's
Yes,
been doing its thing, and there's an old
sure
anime
has.
called Blue Seed. It's just, you could say that everybody ends up really, really having to deal with pollen and plant life.
Yeah. Yep. Well, my darlings, on that note, shall
Indeed.
we
Our
so oh, I have
gadgets.
to read I gotta
Yeah,
redo
summarizing our
the
gadgets.
gadgets. Right, summarizing your gadget. The gadget was nothing for me because I'm still on the hunt for the perfect protein bar. So I'm looking for some recommendations if you guys want to shoot some my way. And Piper picked the face mask, the lowly face mask that we all now know and love,
Indeed.
as a solution for dried out sinuses when you're traveling a long haul flight, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And yes, just remains for us to do the credits.
Yes, indeed. So thanks to producer Matt for putting together this podcast.
Thanks to John Anelio, who loaned us the music from his song Steampunk Girl.
Thanks to Kelly of Aethernautica, who cleaned this audio.
And thank you for listening. Please consider leaving us a review on iTunes, and we will love you forever.
This has been Piper J. Drake.
And Gail Carriger. Travel smart.
Pack the snacks. And oh gosh, my iPad locked.
Oh no. Yeah,
right.
Mine does that too. It still records though, usually. So I think
it does.
Yeah.
It still continues to record. It's just that it means it
Yep.
takes a little bit extra. And, Kelly's gonna have to
Yeah,
either cut that off or not. Maybe.
Yeah, Kelly will be fine. Kelly's doing a great job. So yeah.
I'm super happy with
All
it.
right, my dear. I don't have the juice to record a third one, so we'll have to wait till next time for that. But that's fine, I think, right?
Yeah,